BlackRock just said the quiet part out loud and officially confirmed what I have been mentioning on this channel for a few months now. And we really have to address this, especially when it comes to Ripple and even the connections back to the XRP ledger as well when it comes to the tokenization revolution. So with that being said, welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. So first and foremost, let's actually start off with Ripple making this post a few days after they released the Boston Consulting Group white paper regarding tokenization. We have the market for tokenized financial assets is accelerating and fast. As institutions scale adoption, our new report with BCG explores key use cases, infrastructure needs, and the path to institutional integration. And we actually have down here, approaching the tokenization tipping point. Global financial infrastructure entering a new era as tokenized assets set to surge to $19 trillion by 2033. Now, I did go over that report a little bit, and it is a very in-depth report. There's a lot of great information within it. I think everyone should go check it out because, again, at the end of the day, this is your investment as well. So definitely tap in and do a little bit of research because it is very bullish to really kind of see these outlooks. But the big thing to focus on here is, yeah, tokenization is happening, it's accelerating, and it is happening very, very fast. And the institutional players are ready to integrate. They are ready to tap in, and they want to go all in on tokenization. Now, at the same exact time that this report got released, we also saw a big update from Bitcoin.com, which was talking about how much tokenization actually is growing. $4 billion in tokenized US treasuries are up 415% year over year. Private credit leads with 12.2 billion in TVL. Bull case, 50 billion tokenized assets by 2025. Now, I've actually been hearing a lot about, how much could be tokenized this year. Right now, we're sitting at about roughly $20 billion in total value tokenized. And, we've been hearing the bull case of anywhere between 50 to $100 billion in the year of 2025. And if we're thinking about that, right, to scale from, 100 billion to 1 trillion, I do suspect that that's going to happen very, very fast because so far, from $0 to $20 billion, it happened almost like it was overnight. And this is because of the biggest players like BlackRock, for an example, tied to the tokenization push. But on top of that, we also look at the big banks. And a lot of people actually forget that Ripple has major banks like HSBC, for an example, tapped in through their custody platform. Now, originally this was Medico back in 2023, but HSBC tapped into this for tokenized securities offerings. And what's crazy about this is that this is like one of the biggest banks out there. They're an absolute giant. They have 5.6 trillion back in 2023, of course, in assets in custody, which is crazy. 5.6 trillion is not a small amount of money at all. And when we really think about what's going on here, all of the big banks are lining up. Even Standard Chartered, right, back in 2023 as well, they had their Zodia custody join Ripple's medical platform, which is now just Ripple Custody. And again, this was around institutional players tapping into, storage, but also settlement use cases for anything tokenized, any digital assets, tokenized things of value. So when we really think about what's going on here, yeah, Ripple has been behind this since day one. And now we're starting to see that pay off because of all of the big moves happening. Now, talking more so about Zodia custody, actually, big shout to Wrath of Kahneman because this is where a lot of the hidden connections back to like Securitize really kind of become a reality. Now, is this confirming that BlackRock has a partnership with Ripple and BlackRock is ready to tap into XRP and the XRPL? No, not exactly. But this does give us a little bit of an insight on some connections back to BlackRock that are there that could potentially lead to, a partnership or an announcement of some sort. But regardless of that, let's actually look into this. So the connection, Zodia, Standard Chartered announced it's now a custody provider for Securitize. Securitize is BlackRock's tokenization partner. Zodia is integrated with Ripple Custody, Medico. Securitize was a Ripple investment claiming XRP ledger used for tokenization. Also, by the way, remember that Zodia Custody is actually tapped in for storage and also settlement. But also down here we have, what does it all mean? Nothing yet. Securitize isn't using the XRP ledger for BlackRock, but compared to, say, the early days of payments, they seem to be gaining better penetration in this market with bigger players and its genesis. Exciting. And yes, I do completely agree with this. But also, we have to look at the recent acquisition, because I do think that that's a big one. And even Brad Garlinghouse did kind of hint at BlackRock potentially being a player that could utilize, Hidden Road through Ripple. Check this out.
Our acquisition this week, Hidden Road, we paid a $1.25 billion for what's called a prime broker. And this allows even larger institutions like BlackRock, like the biggest Wall Street financial institutions, to come into this market in a way they understand, with a safer prime broker to help clear transactions and a bigger balance sheet to do that. It's good for the whole industry.
So again, just the way that he worded that does sound very interesting. Why just name drop BlackRock? Out of all of the names that could have, come to mind, BlackRock is the one that he does mention. And remember that BlackRock and even Brad Garlinghouse, both of those individuals, Larry Fink and Brad Garlinghouse, could not talk about BlackRock potentially having an XRP ETF. And the big question is, why? Could it be a conflict of interest? We have no idea why they couldn't talk about this. But also, big shout out to Bank XRP for this clip. But the reason why I'm bringing all of this up is because of the recent announcement from CNBC, which is tokenization is now mainstream. And I even said here that we are no longer just talking about it, we are watching it become a reality now. BlackRock officially sounds the alarm on tokenization. We have tokenization of the market from stocks to bonds to real estate is coming, says BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, if we can solve one problem. Now, we do have the key points down here. We have Larry Fink, CEO BlackRock, the world's biggest money manager, wants all assets from stocks to bonds, real estate, and more to be tradable online on a blockchain. He says this concept, tokenization, would revolutionize financial ownership and investing, but one big cybersecurity challenge stands in the way, and that is digital verification. Now, this is interesting because we already know that BlackRock has been pushing digital IDs for a very long time, and I do think that this is all a part of the big agenda. We've been talking about it. We've been, addressing it. Is it very bullish for us? Not exactly. I've talked about it on multiple occasions on how I'm not in support of digital IDs and the tracking and tracing over DLTs as well. But this is something that is happening. I mean, we gotta accept the fact that the biggest players out there are pushing this into reality. They're accelerating it by all means necessary. And I do think that even the trade war and the tariff discussions are really kind of accelerating the push on digital technologies anyways, which is leading to this. But regardless of that, we do have, if the vision of Larry Fink, CEO BlackRock, the world's biggest money manager, becomes reality, all assets from stocks to bonds to real estate and more would be tradable online on a blockchain. Every asset can be tokenized. This is what Fink said in his recent annual letter to investors. And yeah, I mean, listen, BlackRock has been going all in on tokenization. They've been addressing how big tokenization will actually be. Now, again, I'm not very excited about what they're trying to do here with digital IDs. And, it's always some sort of, oh, there's a big problem here. AI deepfakes. We need to have that digital ID so that we could trust everything. It's just kind of comical, right? We already know that there's always some sort of problem that we, have to get people's reactions to so that we have the solution. And the solution here is already, made. Oh, it's digital IDs. You gotta, make sure that you're KYCing and all this kind of stuff. I just find it very interesting. But regardless of that, we do know that BlackRock has been all in on tokenization of everything. They've been talking about it for roughly now 3 years. But this is a big statement, and it's a big statement coming from, one of the largest mainstream media outlets out there, aka CNBC, at a time where we just saw recently BlackRock officially gets, their registration as a crypto asset firm in the UK. We also know that the UK has been on board the tokenization revolution for a little bit of time as well. So I do find the timing of all of this very interesting. But also what's crazy about all of this is it's not just going back to like 2023 with what Ripple's been doing. And a lot of people will say, well, this is through Ripple custody, so it means absolutely nothing for XRP, right? But I think that this is where a lot of people kind of get confused, because if we go back in 2024 alone, we saw some pretty big updates. Number one was the Archax announcement. Now, this was just one of many because we also have the Zonix one, which is also another big RWA infrastructure, essentially. We have here that we are making history with the world's first combined equity and debt tokenized fund. This groundbreaking initiative spans data centers across 5 continents, advancing global financial markets with unmatched efficiency. And this was all around the XRPL and, Ripple. This also got announced back in August of 2024, just a few months after the Archax announcement, and then this announcement of them expanding their partnership with Archax for the XRP ledger. This was actually to bring hundreds of millions of dollars in tokenized real-world assets to the XRP ledger over the next year. This move solidifies the XRP ledger as a leading blockchain for RWA tokenization. They partnered up with leading financial institutions to enable tokenization of RWAs. Thanks to this extended collaboration, these institutions will be able to utilize the XRP ledger to tokenize their assets. Our industry is at the start of the next major adoption stage in which blockchain technology will deliver real utility in financial markets at scale. And this is actually from Marcus Impinger from Ripple X. But on top of that, right, remember what Archax's CEO, Graham Rodford, did say on stage with James Wallace from Ripple, and this was actually at Ripple Swell. They said that we think every asset will be on chain. This is also supporting the argument of Larry Fink, which is also saying the same exact thing, that, everything of value will essentially be tokenized. Check it out.
What are your thoughts on the technology, aspect of that, and bringing on things like, CSDs into the equation? How do you make these things coexist, but how do you accelerate so you get more benefit?
Yeah, that's probably where I'm a bit more bullish on the adoption of these assets. I mean, we think every asset's going to be on chain. This technology benefits the issuer, the infrastructure, the investor, for numerous reasons. So it's inevitable that this is coming. And you mentioned central securities depositories. And for those that don't know, like DTCC, Euroclear, they're kind of the books and records for a lot of publicly traded securities. And every single one of them, Euroclear, Clearstream, DTCC, these guys are looking at tokenization.
And yeah, I mean, listen, the biggest players out there, I love the fact that he mentions like the DTCC for an example. But a lot of these big players, they're already here. They're already talking about tokenization. We're seeing the biggest names that you can think of: Swift, Euroclear, the DTCC. We even have big players like Robinhood now saying, hey, guess what? Tokenization is the future. Like, this is no longer a talking subject. This is no longer a speculative subject either. We're not sitting here speculating, oh, I wonder if tokenization is going to happen, or I wonder if the big institutions will actually tap in, to public ledger technology like the XRPL. No, it's already happening. And a lot of these big discussions around Ripple, by the way, they are happening around some of the biggest institutions out there. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if there was some sort of connection between Ripple and BlackRock. Now, again, that's us speculating, but we do know that BlackRock did confirm that tokenization is here to stay, and tokenization is only going to accelerate from this point on. I think that, with these subjects becoming mainstream and being posted on platforms like CNBC, it's getting the word out there faster than ever. The big institutional players are paying attention. Wall Street is paying attention. We even know that the NASDAQ said themselves that, listen, we want to expand trading hours. We want to go 24/5. How do they do that? Well, they tap into tokenization. They tap into players like Ondo, which are building out Wall Street 2.0, which also does have a partnership with the XRP ledger to offer their I think it's tokenized treasuries on the XRP ledger. So when we think about what's really going on, this is starting. It already is here. 20 billion is on chain. But 20 billion compared to markets like real estate or stocks or bonds or anything that we think about here in terms of like real estate itself, like think about real estate just by itself, 300 trillion plus, almost 400 trillion. The last time that I looked, $379 trillion in just one market. We're not even talking about stocks. We're not even talking about bonds. We're not even talking about, the, metals markets. Like, think about how big tokenization will be compared to where we are at right now. We are just getting started, and over the coming weeks, months, and years, it is going to be an up-only path of just money flowing on chain, and I'm very excited to watch this become a reality. There's definitely a lot of pros and cons to this. I think that some of the things that, BlackRock is talking about, aka digital IDs and things like that, it definitely calls for concern, and I think that we should be aware of that. But outside of that, we are starting to see the biggest revolution happening around our financial markets, while majority of the retail sector is still asleep at the wheel. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, this has been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.